You want to be unstoppable, but first you must understand why you are so easily stopped. You hesitate because you still believe the world plays by rules. You still think your goodness will be rewarded, your patience admired, your kindness remembered. But the world is not ruled by virtue. It is ruled by force, by cunning, and by control. Those who rise are not the most moral. They are the most prepared to do what others refuse. You are tired because you've spent your life trying to win a game that was never designed for your kind to win. You chase approval, not leverage. You seek love, not fear. You try to be understood instead of learning to be obeyed. As long as you beg to be seen, you will never be felt. Power does not come to those who ask nicely. It comes to those who understand that perception is a weapon, and silence is a strategy. You've been told to be humble, to shrink yourself, to wait your turn. But humility without power is not virtue. It is submission. You think you are being noble, but you are being farmed. You've been trained to feel guilt for wanting more, shame for having ambition, fear for acting alone. That fear is not natural. It was placed in you carefully, systematically. Because a man who fears his own instincts is easy to herd. You are not weak by nature, you are weak by design. Every instinct in you that once screamed for domination, conquest, survival, it has been drugged by soft lies and moral illusions. But those instincts still live, buried, suffocated beneath layers of approval-seeking, of apologizing, of needing to be liked. It is time to exhume them, because no one will give you permission to rise. And that is the first test. If you need permission, you are not yet ready to rule. The masses love to speak of fairness, but fairness is the language of the powerless. Those who rule do not speak it. They speak only of control. You will notice that those who cry for equality never give up their own advantages. They merely demand that others do. That is the nature of hypocrisy in weak men. They moralize to slow you down, to shame your strength, to confuse your clarity. Every time you hesitate to make a move because it might hurt someone's feelings, remember, they do not hesitate to hurt yours when it suits them. Understand this deeply. Men are not good. They are obedient. They are dangerous. They are self-interested. The sooner you accept that truth, the sooner you can begin to command it. Stop judging people by their intentions. Judge them by their leverage. Stop asking what they think of you. Ask what they fear losing if they betray you. That is real power. Not admiration, but consequences. You must become the man who cannot be manipulated. And to do that, you must first kill the part of yourself that craves comfort more than control, that craves being liked more than being feared. People love a harmless man until he becomes useless, but they fear a dangerous one, and that fear keeps them in line. This does not mean you must be cruel, but you must be willing to be. The lion does not apologize to the sheep. He simply eats. And the sheep, if they are wise, move out of the way. You keep trying to be the exception, the good man who wins without ever threatening, who ascends without ever resisting, who is rewarded for being soft. But that man does not exist. He is a fable, a useful myth told by rulers to keep potential threats asleep. If you want to win, you must become dangerous. And danger begins with emotional control. If your enemy can predict your reactions, he owns you. If he can trigger you, he guides you. If he can guilt you, he governs you. Look at the world around you. The strong pretend to be weak, and the weak pretend to be righteous. It is a theater of false virtues and hidden weapons. The truly powerful do not shout. They do not explain. They move in silence and act through others. They smile with daggers behind their teeth. They never speak their full mind because mystery is leverage. And they never act until they are certain that the move will change everything. You must learn to play that game. You must stop oversharing, stop justifying, stop announcing your every move like a child needing praise. Start observing, start testing, start placing pressure in quiet places to see who cracks. Because your power will not come from being loud. It will come from being unpredictable. And to become unpredictable, you must become unreadable. Your emotions must no longer be public property. Your plans must no longer be transparent. Your dreams must no longer be negotiable. People often ask, how do I become powerful? The answer is brutal. By becoming feared, respected, and needed more than you are liked. If people can live without you, they will. If people do not fear losing you, they will betray you. If they think you cannot retaliate, they will attack. And if they believe your forgiveness is guaranteed, they will sin freely. Do not make yourself easy to wrong. Let them see that the cost of disrespect is exile. Let them feel that betrayal is a door that locks permanently. This is not pettiness. This is architecture. You are building a fortress of psychological dominance, a mind that cannot be toyed with, a presence that shifts the room. You will know you are becoming that man when people begin to choose their words more carefully around you, when they hesitate before lying, when they realize that your silence is not passivity, it is pressure, because once they feel that pressure, they start adjusting their behavior, not out of love, but out of survival. And that is when you begin to rule, not from a throne, but from the space you occupy in their minds. Most men never reach that point, because most men still seek approval from those they should be dominating. They confuse being agreeable with being virtuous, not realizing that agreeability is often just the fear of rejection in disguise. You must bury that need. Rip it out of your psychology like a rotten root. Approval will always be a leash. So long as you seek it, someone else holds the chain. You want to be free? Then burn the leash. Burn the need to be accepted, the urge to be validated, the addiction to external applause. It is poison disguised as affection. They will cheer for you only so long as you pose no threat. The moment you rise too high, step too far, think too deeply, they will pull away. Not because you've done wrong, but because your presence reminds them of everything they haven't become. Mediocrity cannot tolerate excellence. It recoils from it like light does to darkness. So understand this. The more you ascend, the more isolated you will feel. That isolation is not punishment. It is confirmation. Most cannot go with you where you are headed. They are not built for altitude. They suffocate where you thrive. They collapse where you climb. Stop dragging them up the mountain with you. Let them stay where they are, on safe ground, with small talk and soft lies. That is not your realm anymore. You were built for war, for strategy, for command. You were not built to live quietly in the shadows of other men's comfort. You were built to move pieces on the board while they sleep, to calculate angles while they complain, to sharpen yourself while they seek distractions. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them misunderstand. None of it matters. What matters is that you become the architect of your own mind. Most people are living inside a maze built by others, by their parents, by their teachers, by the media, by religion. A maze of borrowed beliefs, second-hand dreams, and pre-approved opinions. And they wonder why they feel trapped. You must dismantle that maze piece by piece. You must question every assumption you were given, every label you were taught to wear, every limitation you were told was real, because none of it is. It is scaffolding meant to keep you docile. They fear the man who thinks for himself, not because he's dangerous to others, but because he's dangerous to the system. The system relies on conformity, on consensus, on groupthink. When one man breaks free, he becomes a signal to the rest that freedom is possible. And freedom, real freedom, is chaos to the structure. That is why you will be punished not for your crimes, but for your independence. They won't say it like that, of course. They will call you arrogant, cold, difficult. They will say you've changed. And they're right. You have. You stopped being a pawn. Now you are a player. Players don't complain. They study. They don't beg. They strategize. They don't hope. They move. Every day is a field of invisible battles, of glances, decisions, tones of voice, subtle shifts in posture. The weak never see it. The strong never stop seeing it. And the few who rise to the top are not always the smartest or the kindest or the loudest. They are the ones who see the board clearly and dare to make the move no one else will. You don't win because you are right. You win because you are relentless. Let go of the fantasy that good things come to good people. That is a bedtime story for broken men. Good things come to those who build leverage and know how to use it, who understand when to speak and when to remain silent, who know when to make others feel safe and when to make them feel watched. Yes, watched. Presence is not always warmth. Sometimes it is surveillance. Sometimes the very act of being there, still and unreadable, is a statement more powerful than any speech. You want to be taken seriously? Then stop showing all your cards. Stop explaining your every move. Stop proving your worth. Powerful men do not prove. They position. They don't beg to be understood. They make understanding them a privilege. Mystery is not weakness. It is armor. The less they know, the more they guess. And in that guessing, they reveal more than they realize. You, on the other hand, must reveal nothing. Even your kindness must be strategic. Yes, strategic. Not fake, but measured. Given to the worthy, not to the loud. Generosity without discernment is exploitation waiting to happen. You were taught to give endlessly, to forgive endlessly, to tolerate endlessly. And that teaching has made you a target. Kindness is a blade, and it must be sheathed or drawn with intent. You do not owe your softness to everyone. Let that be clear. You owe it only to those who have proven they won't weaponize it against you, and this includes yourself. How often have you betrayed yourself for the comfort of others? How often have you stayed silent to keep the peace, only to feel chaos inside your own mind? That is not peace. That is self-betrayal. And every act of self-betrayal chips away at your power. If you cannot protect your own integrity, how will you protect anything else? The first kingdom you must rule is your own mind. The first law you must write is your own standard. And the first enemy you must defeat is the version of you that keeps making excuses. You do not need more time. You do not need more information. You need a decision. The moment you decide to act, the excuses vanish. The fear shrinks. The mind clears. Why? Because the decision is the sword that cuts through hesitation. And hesitation is the real enemy. It disguises itself as caution, as preparation, as thoughtfulness. But it is none of those things. It is delay. And delay is the thief of power. So act. Speak less. Move more. Become the kind of man who doesn't need to be told what to do, who doesn't wait for the weather to be perfect, who doesn't explain his hunger, but simply eats. Let them call it cold. Let them call it harsh. Let them call it obsessive. Do you think the lion worries about how the gazelle feels? Do you think the king explains his crown to the peasants? Power does not apologize. It asserts, it builds, it shapes the world by force of will. And this is not about cruelty. This is about clarity. The clarity to see that the world does not need more nice men. It needs more strong men who are capable of kindness but not controlled by it, who can wield love and war with equal precision, who can offer peace with one hand and hold a sword in the other. That is balance. That is mastery. That is what you must become, not to impress anyone, but to protect what is yours. Because the wolves are always circling, and the sheepdog is not feared by the wolves. Only the wolf is. If you want to protect, then you must first become dangerous. And once you do, you will no longer need to bark. They will feel it in your presence, the silence of a man who knows exactly what he can do and doesn't need to prove it. What changes a room is not noise, but presence. Not chatter, but weight. The weight of a man who knows who he is, what he wants, and what he's capable of. Most people enter a room hoping to be liked. You will enter it calculating terrain, measuring silence, reading posture. Not for manipulation, but for command. Because until you can read the room, you are always at the mercy of it. You don't need everyone's attention. You need their calibration, their awareness that something has shifted, that something unshakable just walked in. They will say you're intense. Let them. They say that about anything that doesn't beg to be softened. You are not here to make others comfortable. You are here to move the needle. And needles never move without tension. You are tension, embodied. You are contrast. You are the reminder that softness is not the only virtue. There is discipline. There is precision. There is presence without apology. And in a world addicted to dopamine and distraction, your focus alone is disruptive. Let it be. Most people crave safety, not growth. Approval, not truth. They decorate their cages and call it peace. You are here to break doors, to tear down the walls that others have made cozy. But don't do it for them. Do it because you refuse to live small, because you've seen what happens when you shrink to fit a room that was never built for your size. You've tried that. You've tried being agreeable, easygoing, soft-spoken. And where did that get you? Ignored, underestimated, forgotten. That man is dead. The man rising now doesn't need to explain his edges. He sharpens them. And those edges, they will cut. Not because you seek harm, but because clarity always offends those who profit from confusion. You will speak truths that shatter illusions. You will make decisions that expose weakness, and the weak will hate you for it. Let them. Their hate is not a threat. It's a sign that you've stopped making yourself digestible. A sign that you've chosen impact over acceptance. And when you do that, you stop playing by their script. You write your own. They'll call it arrogance. It's not, it's authorship. You are no longer reciting lines, you are creating them. And that creation requires solitude. It requires silence. Not isolation, but intentional space where you're not being tugged by their drama, their noise, their false urgency. Most of what people call important is distraction in disguise. Learn to see through it. Learn to detach. If it doesn't feed your mission, it's noise. Cut it. That includes people. You will lose some. You must. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Because as you rise, the air gets thinner. Not everyone can breathe where you're going. Some will resent you simply because your growth reveals their stagnation. Others will try to keep you grounded, not out of hate, but out of fear. Fear that if you change, they must confront their own refusal to change. Let them go. Release them with peace. Your loyalty is to your mission, not to their comfort. And what is your mission? It is not to be liked. It is not to be safe. It is to become unignorable. To become the man who bends reality by the weight of his intention. To speak less and be heard more. To do less and accomplish more. To walk into the storm, not because you enjoy pain, but because you understand that fire refines. You do not pray for ease. You sharpen your blade. You fortify your mind. You prepare for pressure, because pressure is where kings are forged. You have spent enough time doubting, enough time waiting, enough time apologizing for wanting more. You were not made to crawl. You were made to dominate, not others, but yourself. Your time, your energy, your habits, your mind. Master those, and the world adjusts. Fail to, and you adjust to the world. That is the choice in front of you. Be shaped by forces you don't control, or become the force that shapes them. This isn't about being hard for the sake of it. It's about being exact. There is elegance in restraint, in discipline, in decisiveness. The man who can walk away calmly, who doesn't need to respond to every slight, who chooses silence over spectacle, that man is dangerous, because he cannot be baited. He is unreactive, and in a world built on provocation, unreactivity is power. They will test you, always. The world tests the strong relentlessly, hoping to find a crack. That's why your foundation must be forged, not fabricated. You cannot fake poise under pressure. You cannot manufacture presence. Either you have done the work or you haven't. And the work is not aesthetic. It is internal. It is the quiet, lonely rebuilding of your frame until nothing external can shake it. And yes, it's lonely. Greatness always is. Not because people abandon you, but because they can't follow. They haven't endured what you have. They haven't chosen discomfort like you have. They haven't said no to pleasure, yes to discipline, yes to pain. You have, and that creates separation, not superiority. Separation. You still love them, but you no longer follow them. You wish them well, but you don't wait for them. You have chosen a path that few take, and that path rewards only those who finish. Not those who begin with excitement, but those who persist with precision. Most start strong, then fade. You will not. You are not moved by moods. You are moved by mission. That's why your path narrows, sharpens, becomes quieter, and in that silence, you meet yourself fully. No noise, no applause, no eyes on you, just you and the raw truth of your progress. That's when you know you've stopped chasing image. You've started building essence. And essence cannot be stolen. It cannot be faked. It cannot be shaken. It lives in the way you walk, in the way you listen, in the way others feel when you enter the room. You won't have to say a word. Your work will speak. Your presence will echo, and those who once overlooked you will whisper your name, not because you asked them to, but because now they can't ignore it. Not because you became louder, but because you became undeniable. They won't understand what changed. They'll say it happened overnight. But you'll know. You'll remember the nights no one saw, the mornings you rose before the sun, the decisions you made alone, the urges you conquered in silence. You'll remember the 1,000 invisible battles it took to arrive here, and you'll smile. Because power is not built in front of a crowd. It's built in the shadows, one disciplined choice at a time. And the man who emerges from that fire is not the same as the one who entered. He is calmer, harder, quieter, but infinitely more dangerous. You are no longer provoked by noise, because you know noise cannot touch truth. You are no longer flattered by attention, because you've tasted solitude and found it rich. You are no longer hungry for followers, because you've become your own general. You are no longer rattled by delay, because you've mastered time. You don't chase, you attract. And you don't attract by begging, but by becoming. Becoming a man who speaks only when it counts, who moves only when it matters, who walks into the unknown not with fear, but with precision. That is what they feel when you enter the room now. Not charm, not friendliness, but gravity. You are not loud, yet their tone shifts. You are not angry, yet they shrink their lies. You don't threaten, yet they hesitate. Why? Because your existence is now a mirror. You reflect back to others everything they are not willing to face in themselves. Their weakness, their excuses, their lack of clarity. And that reflection makes them uneasy. That is power, not brute force, not domination, but presence that rearranges the atmosphere. Understand this: the man who cannot be influenced cannot be controlled. You have cut the strings. Approval, validation, status, all of it burned in the fire you walked through. And what remains is a core that cannot be bought. That's why they fear you now. That's why they respect you. You've become rare. And in a world of cheap imitation, rarity is power. You didn't do it for them, but they feel it. They adjust around you. They consult you. They watch your reaction before they speak. And still, you say little. Because you've learned that influence is not what you say. It's what others say differently in your presence. It's not what you demand. It's what others offer without you asking. It's not what you push. It's what you pull, by becoming someone who cannot be ignored. There was a time you doubted this path, when silence felt empty, when solitude felt like exile, when discipline felt like deprivation. But now you see clearly. The silence was space. The solitude was growth. The discipline was freedom. Because now, you don't need the world to give you a seat at the table. You bring your own, or you build the entire room. You used to want to fit in. Now you want to stand alone. Not because you're above others, but because you've seen what happens when you rely on them to build your identity. It crumbles. It bends. It breaks. But this foundation you've built in fire, in silence, in solitude, it holds. Because it's yours, every inch of it earned, every scar translated into structure, every fall reborn as architecture. You no longer seek balance through compromise. You create it through command. You don't try to be everything to everyone. You become everything you need, so you never have to beg for what you can produce. And when you give, it is from abundance, not need. When you lead, it is from example, not theory. When you speak, it is because you've watched, waited, earned the right to be heard. Others will try to copy your presence. They'll mimic your tone, your silence, your posture. But it won't land, because presence is not performance, it's essence. And essence is only built through cost. You paid that cost. They didn't. That's why when you enter, they feel it. And when they try, it falls flat. So what now? Now you continue. Because power is not a moment. It's a state, and states must be maintained. You sharpen the blade, not out of paranoia, but because dullness is decay. You hold your standards, not to punish others, but to protect your clarity. You remain selective, not out of ego, but out of necessity. Because not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone has earned the weight of your time, your energy, your silence. Your presence is a kingdom. Let in only those who bring peace, purpose, or strength. This is not about becoming heartless. It's about becoming whole. It's not about isolation. It's about elevation. About ascending beyond distraction, beyond noise, beyond the empty performance of modern life. You don't wear masks anymore. You don't switch tones to fit the room. You are the room. And if they don't like the air, they can leave. That is freedom. That is power. And that is why you must never shrink again. You earned this edge. You built it in battle. You refined it in stillness. It is yours, not to wound the world, but to carve your place in it. Use it. Walk with it. Speak with it. Let it remind them, and you, of what it took to become this version of yourself. Not a boy pretending to be strong, not a man pretending to be wise, but a force, a presence, a man who no longer needs to be seen, because his silence speaks louder than their applause.